years ago, I reviewed the first film, and actually not just the first film, the entirety of the Dario Argento Three Mothers trilogy: Susperia, um, Inferno, and Mother of Tears. This time, as we return to the spooky season, I'm going to take a look at the first film Argento worked on with Goblin, Deep Red. As this is a over 30-year-old movie, there will be spoilers. Deep Red is a more conventional Giallo than Susperia is. Suspiria is not a Giallo at all. Deep Red is a mystery film with very minimal but not non-existent supernatural elements, with the lead trying to stop a mysterious killer who the audience occasionally sees commit their murders. And in the Grand Giallo tradition, we see the killer almost exclusively in the first person, with their hands masked by black gloves to keep from giving away any clue to their identity through what we can see of them. The film only switches for the third person for some of the kills, with, again, camera work masking their identity. Our protagonist here is Marcus Daly, a musician and music teacher from the UK who's currently living in Rome, and who is good friends with a local nightclub pianist, Carlo. One evening, Marcus and Carlo, glancing up at Marcus's apartment building, see Marcus's upstairs neighbor, psychic medium Helga Ullman, get brutally murdered through her window. And if you're asking yourself, did they see her through her window and that she was brutally murdered, or was she brutally murdered through her window? I remind you, this is a Giallo. The answer is yes. In order to find out what happened, Marcus ends up teaming with reporter Gianna and Helga's friend Dr. Giordani. We don't really get full names for either of them, to get to the bottom of the murders. However, in the Grand Giallo tradition, none of the three are actually safe. Now, watching this, I do very much appreciate that this is a Giallo film that didn't feel like it cheats. If you pay close attention, you could figure out who the killer is before the main character does, and it doesn't feel like a cheap introduction out of left field. Indeed, when they when you get those clues, when we go back through the movie, or I should say, when the protagonist realizes what they saw, we go back through the footage, which is footage that we've seen before. It's a reuse of footage as opposed to shot from a different angle or that sort of thing, to refresh the audience that, hey, you saw this thing. Both of you saw this thing, but you didn't realize what it was at the time. Now, with some Giallo films, the killer feels like something out of the reveal of the killer from the first Friday the 13th movie. We know Mrs. Voorhees is the killer because she's literally dropped in the film out of nowhere, so it's pretty good that she is the killer. With Deep Red, while we don't have a wide array of suspects to build from, by the end of the film, we have a selection to choose from, and it does a really good job of building up the evidence to point in that killer's direction, and consequently the reveal of their identity makes complete and total sense. Interestingly, unlike some of the other Giallo films I've seen, while certainly Deep Red is violent and brutal, it doesn't feel, or I say it doesn't feel, but it feels less misogynistic than other films in the genre. While in total the murder victims tend more female than male, the manners of their deaths feel less sexual than they can sometimes feel in other works in the genre. That said, this is not helped by the film having the killer being dispatched by arguably a symbol of their femininity, and the killer being something of a psycho biddy character as well. You rarely get psycho old guys in horror. Also, I'm rather surprised to say that we have a transgender character in this film, in a Italian suspense thriller horror film from the 1970s, and this transgender character is sympathetic and is just depicted normally. They're there. They exist in the film. They are somewhat exoticized, but I'll say up front, they're not the killer. They're not murdered. They're in the film, and they exist, and outside from just kind of dwelling on them and one of the characters being not sure how to take a person being transgender, that's it. There's no jokes at their expense, and they're not villainized. They exist. And it, just by the nature of this, it feels remarkably progressive for an Italian film in the 1970s. This is not to say that this is progressive, but that, as far as for now, but it is progressive for its time. As far as the production of the film itself goes, Argento's cinematographer on this is Luigi Cuvelier. I think I pronounced the name correctly. And the two have some really amazing shots in this film, including some engaging close shots of various pieces of paraphernalia that help foreshadow the identity of the killer, combined with really great investigative work, camera work on the investigative sequences in the film. All of this is accompanied by an excellent score by Goblin and is very atmospheric and helps build both a sense of dread for the scenes of the killer and build mood as our protagonists are going through their investigation. If you liked the score for Susperia, you are definitely going to like the score for Deep Red. I would recommend picking that up as well if you picked up the Susperia score. I do like Susperia a little more than this, but I do definitely get why Deep Red, in some cases more than Susperia, was more as a lot of people's gateway to Argento's work. And I certainly, if you want an Argento film that is more of a traditional Giallo in a lot of respects, it is less overtly supernatural, but not without like a slight dabbling of the supernatural to it, then this certainly is worth picking up. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and also consider backing my Patreon. Patreon backers get episodes up to 1 week early of this show and any future Let's Plays. Also, please consider backing my Ko-fi. Toss me a few bucks also helps support the show, and it's not a monthly obligation or anything like that.